Now, also let's understand what are the various challenges in valuation, which people who are valuing the companies usually face. Right. First is subjectivity and assumptions. Now, obviously, when we talk about one of the best methodologies of intrinsic value, which is DCF, it is very, very sensitive. Why is it sensitive? Because there are minor adjustments, which happen on certain parameters. And what are those parameters? The parameters are nothing but, the terminal growth rate, because the terminal values change the moment, the terminal growth rate changes. For example, if you take 3% terminal growth rate, the expected future cash flows on the terminal value is an X value. But the moment you take it, upward, your future cash flows increases, which increases the valuation. Now, the same thing holds true for your weighted average cost of capital. If your weighted average cost of capital decreases, the enterprise value swings away by, millions of dollars, right? And that's where, the model meets a lot of uncertainty, I would rather say. Now, there are certain instances where, the data cannot be sourced from comparable companies. Now, for highly innovative startups, something, where uh, no one has ever built in, and something which has come out as a unique, or maybe some product which is into a very niche manufacturing. What is happening? It becomes very difficult to find a true comparable company, and especially on the public side of it, right? So valuation becomes very, very difficult. Rather, it becomes a little impractical to find out valuation, right? Or I would rather say practically impossible. And what happens in such cases? People start issuing safe notes, right? A floor valuation and a ceiling valuation, right? To understand, if whatever the team, the shareholders, the founders claim, on the operations of the company, if they are able to meet the operations, thereby understanding if the industry and if the market is really there for the product which they have, built in, or the service which they have built in. Obviously, market volatility, when during macroeconomic shocks, we always see that the market multiples compress rapidly. What happens is it typically means that the valuations will fall drastically, right? Now, a valuation completed in a bull market may be obsolete within weeks, only because the macroeconomic shocks have chipped in. Obviously, regulatory and legal considerations has to be taken into picture. The companies where the sector or the industry is highly regulated, the valuations will automatically fall down, because the open environment is not there for the company to operate, uh, and hence the sales part of it, the revenue generation part of it drastically falls down, which typically will translate to lesser valuation, right? This often conflicts with the pure commercial banking methodologies, right? So yeah, I think, guys, I was able to make you understand, how the various sectors are, operated, or I would start to say how they are valued using various valuation methodologies, and how these valuations, the methodologies are very sensitive to certain factors, right? And how valuations are important and why they are important for us to understand and build for both physical assets as well as for companies. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. In my next video, I'll be talking more from tools and resources which are used for valuation. Till then, yeah, thank you so much. See you.